Hello and welcome to the Kimberley IT podcast, episode 89, with myself, James Kimberley, the founder of Kimberley IT, joined as always by Carl Heath, the co-founder of Kimberley IT.
Got to say, Carl. Yeah, good, thank you.
Got to say, Carl, yesterday was a bit of a crazy day.
Yeah, it was a little bit busy, wasn't it? A lot of niggling issues and things that you just have to do that are a bit frustrating sometimes.
Yes, unexpected visit for me to Stratford-upon-Avon.
Yeah, did have a comedic element to it though, so it wasn't all bad.
It did, yeah. It was a subscriber who was stuck in a bit of a pickle.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people manage to either not be able to get into their iPhone or go, I've lost all my contacts on iPhones. You never hear an Android person say that.
No. So when they first messaged me that my first selection was get an Android.
Yeah.
Does not happen. iPhone is just
super easy for doing that.
It's just a bad operating system. iOS is. It's just not a business designed operating system anymore. Well, it never was, but it was when it first came out. It was more advanced than Android for the first few versions. But Android is just way ahead of it now on all business and work profiles and all that kind of stuff. And you just don't get these issues. So this was where an iPhone had just mysteriously, all its contacts had just completely and utterly vanished from the phone. Because of certificates and stuff like that, all this complex nonsense you got to do with an iPhone to connect it to other services,
right?
Which you'd have to do on an Android. And I just when it came in, I just thought I wish the guy had an Android because that wouldn't be a problem. I was thinking actually we should just buy him an Android because then we'll never have to help again because it won't ever play up again. But with an iPhone, it's fixed now. But whenever there's another significant update of either the iOS or a certificate renewal or something like that, there's a likelihood that problem's going to happen because the guy with the iPhone, he's not computer literate. He uses his phone as most people do to make calls and stuff like that, and his contacts just vanish. All he'd actually done was update a certificate on the machine. Of course, he didn't know all the stuff he needed to do on that, but it shouldn't be something like that. It should be simple for somebody to use. An end user shouldn't need to know the technologies behind a certificate and what permissions to grant and all this stuff when they're going through it. It should just be done and silently in the background that a new certificate has been issued. That's it. It's applied because it's already been certified.
Yeah. Apple operates a bit like a lawyer or an accountant can operate by going, here are the full facts. Here are the full technical legal facts, James. Please make your decision. Do you want me to go ahead or not?
And you've got to press yes on everything or allow on everything.
You wouldn't know. I don't know. Yeah. I don't understand what this is. You're the lawyer. I can't give you an opinion. I can only give you the facts.
Yeah.
And that's
it's like accountants, isn't it?
Yeah.
They'll never make a decision for you. You've got to make the decision. But the worst thing about an iPhone as well, after you've made the decision, it goes, can you enter your password as well, just to make sure it's you that's making the decision too.
Yeah, they're not geared up for business, for the world of work profile and home profile and whatever, and they're never going to be.
It's always been the way of Apple devices, in my opinion. They've always been consumer products. They've never been designed for business use. Just because their complexity in actually getting them to do business stuff. They don't do it out of the box. You have to do a lot of fiddling with them to get them to do proper stuff business-wise. And it's always been a consumer product.
Yep.
Apple devices, always.
I don't think it'll ever change.
No, there's a big market for consumer products, and they're very good at flogging the devices to consumers. It just means that you do have this nonsense where these devices are brought into the business world and they cause problems.
Yeah, they do indeed.
It was all right going to Stratford-upon-Avon. It was they're like a mini climate over there. It was a proper heat wave going on over there.
Oh right, okay. It was nice, was it? And sunny.
Yeah. It must have been high 20s over there.
Oh,
As I was driving towards it, it was just getting brighter and hotter.
Excellent.
I had to stop at a petrol station though on the way, which is a BP petrol station. It was so dated. You couldn't pay at the pumps. They had no pay at the pumps once, so you had to go in to pay and all this. It's just like I was at a chat actually with someone on LinkedIn about it, and I've noticed that you don't ever get contactless payment options at pay at pump. It's always enter your credit card, and I guess for some reason they think that's going to stop people from driving off without paying for their petrol.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any difference, is it? You're just going to fill your car up and drive off either way.
Yeah, and I don't see any of that changing in the near future because I imagine investment in petrol stations will be zero now.
Well, it might actually make a difference because you do have to enter your PIN code and stuff in the card before you can actually start pumping.
Well, because otherwise you wouldn't have enough money.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's still kind of pointless because you could just drive to another pump because they normally have a mixture, don't they? They normally have a mixture of pumps where you can pay with your card, and then they have some pumps where you don't. So what's the point? Because if someone's going to get their petrol anyway, they're just going to go to the one with well, you don't have to pay.
Well, I would imagine the point
Fill
would
up
be
first.
perhaps the person who accidentally filled up with and then didn't have enough money, but they meant to, but they didn't.
Yeah, but if you still go in, you make you complete a form, don't they? If you do that, complete a form and get the money off you later.
Yeah.
Because I think someone who's done that isn't intentionally going to drive off with the petrol. They've just actually made a mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what we were up to yesterday. And in the last 2 weeks, so we have a thing called Kimbot, which is I won't go into too much details, but it's our little bot that we have running that brings useful and relevant information to us directly. And I did some reprogramming on it, so it has it feeds the information in a nicer way, so you can see more snippets of details of information before you have to click on it to read more.
Mm-hmm.
And considering rolling out to some clients to see how it works, to support them when they ask questions and or well, not ask questions, but send relevant information, such as if there's a Google outage, they'll instantly know about it because Kimbot will tell them about it, even quicker than we do at the moment.
Yeah.
So I am looking at doing that, and I've got an idea of a couple of clients that I think I might trial it on them. Problem is, I need to wait for I need a Google outage to happen so I can make sure that it's firing everything correctly the way it should be. And until an outage happens, I won't know for certain.
No, and there hasn't been one for a while.
No, exactly. Yeah, sort of annoying. It will definitely fire. I just want to make sure that the information appears in a nice, readable format and makes sense, rather than it being like clumped up or it's missing spaces or stuff like that between the sections and things like that. Just make it really easy to read quickly.
Let's take it. There's no way of actually testing that.
Well, I could test it on my own feeds and stuff like that, but I can't test it on the real feed just to essentially bug check.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you got anything you've been up to in the last 2 weeks, Carl?
Yeah, I've been on holiday again.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I went to Wales on a family holiday in a caravan.
Oh, and you finally got your photo done for the website.
Yeah, it's not easy, you know.
Anyone who goes to the About Us page will now see an updated photo of Carl and his family. It's taken me months of asking Carl to do it, and he had sent some in the past, but he'd sent ones where he was kind of not in the photo, which didn't really work too well.
Yeah,
like half your face and stuff like that. It doesn't work that well.
Yeah, you weren't happy about that one, but eventually I got there. It's hard work trying to get everybody in, and then when you went, oh, it has to be landscape too, you swine. Yeah,
you've always got to send photos landscape because it's far easier to edit and do things to a landscape photo than a portrait one. Portraits are buggers of photos to manipulate and make look decent.
Yeah, I see it now. There we are on the beach at Aberystwyth, that is.
Good.
Yeah, very nice actually. Right.
That's actually where we go sea fishing from.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, from the port near there.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then the final thing is my Polestar 2 order, Carl, is slowly progressing, but it's very odd because they seem to have built the car, got it all ready, but they still haven't asked me to sign any agreements. So it's like they clearly have a lot of supply. A lot of demand, I mean, in that if I decide not to sign the agreement, they clearly can hand that car off to somebody very quickly.
No, shoot. So you still haven't agreed to have it, or you just want to, but they haven't sent you the stuff?
Well, I want to have it, but I haven't agreed to have it yet. In that I haven't signed the agreement, so I can pull out. I can still pull out now, even though the car's being built.
Yeah.
And I find that odd. In that if I was doing it, I would have the agreement signed first before I started manufacturing and building the car. But they seem to do it in a completely odd way, which doesn't really make much sense to me.
Yeah, I know. You have to ask them about that.
That'd be interesting with your EV when you get yours, if that's the same. But I imagine your EV will already be built, to be honest.
Yeah, I've already looked, James. I'm going with what you might call I don't know, off-the-shelf model. So I've already looked at a couple of leasing companies. I've had a good quote come through. I only want 2 extras. I want the 100-watt kilowatt charge for the fast charge, and an ironic one that's not in it. Rear airbags aren't as standard in the car. Rear seat airbags on the side.
Do you even need the fast charger?
Well, it's 55 minutes on the normal.
On the normal charger, yeah, that'd be fine because you'll be charging overnight.
Yeah, I just thought about whether I wanted it on those odd occasions when I'll go over the range.
Yeah, but even on the odd occasions when you go over the range, it wouldn't take too long to get enough battery. You don't need to fill it up to the top. You just need enough battery to get to the next location.
Yeah,
and that's that. And one McDonald's meal cover the time taken to do that.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you might be right about that one. Well, in that case, then the only extra I'm having is those airbags in the rear. I'm not bothered about too much else. There's no performance in the Enyaq. They have released an Enyaq now that's coming out that's got double motors, so it'll do 260 brake horsepower. But I'm not bothered about that because it puts 10 grand on the car. So I'm not fussed, and that's still not that fast because it's an SUV at the end of the day.
Yeah. So when you plan to get that?
No, I don't want it until January because that's when my existing car runs out. So I don't see the point in doubling up on it. So probably January, I think. But it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I imagine because it's a mass-produced car, there won't be any wait time on that, or very little at most.
Yeah. I think it's like 6 to 8 weeks.
The only thing that could delay it is actually the chip shortage.
Yeah.
If they do run out of available vehicles and they can't build any new ones.
Yeah, I mean there is that potential. Yeah, I guess there is that potential, and no one knows.
Because an EV car, modern EV cars are roughly around about 3,000 computer chips inside them.
Yep.
Bits of silicon. And without that, you can't really do much. You can buy the airbags, but they won't fire if they haven't got the computer chips. Yeah,
that's funny. My old Mercedes I used to have would have had 0 chips in it. I think.
It probably had had one.
What do you reckon with one?
Well, because you have remember the old service control panels you have where they have a light, it will tell you if the system's out. And that probably have one computer chip just to program that, just to tell you, the oil's low or something like that, because there's a sensor in there. And it would have to go into a computer chip and then turn the LED light on to tell you. Yeah,
you're right. There would have been a tiny PCB on the back of the console display. Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah, that's about it, isn't it? Yeah.
Which is interesting because that computer in your old Mercedes was more powerful than the ones that sent man to the moon.
Yeah, very likely. Which is that's just nuts.
And all it could do in your car was turn an LED on.
Yeah.
It's good, and it all goes down to how great EVs are, because there's a lot of computer chips in there, but computer chips generally don't go wrong.
Yeah.
And if they do go wrong, they're very easy to identify which one it is normally, because it's electrical circuitry and stuff like that.
You don't hear of malfunctioning CPUs unless they get hot. They're not going to go wrong.
Yeah, exactly, and it's just so much cheaper to service because you don't have much servicing costs at all. I was listening to our fully charged podcast by the guy who used to play on Red Dwarf. What was the name of the character on Red Dwarf?
Crichton.
I think it's Robert Llewellyn, something like that. Is his surname? Is his name?
Yeah, Robert Llewellyn. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a fully charged podcast all about EVs, and he was talking about his I can't remember which EV he's got at the moment, but it had to go in for service, and he asked him how much it's going to be, roughly £70. What? £70 is just literally there's only a few parts that need changing anyway. There's far less parts in there that need to be checked, so everything's a lot quicker. Labour's quicker, time taken, much smaller, tiny amount of parts to fix, and they generally don't go wrong.
So what's the service? Air filter, a filter maybe for coming into the vehicle filter or something?
Possibly. You could potentially could be brake pads, but if you're using like 1 foot driving, then you generally aren't using the brakes because you're just doing regenerative energy to slow the car down, putting the motors into reverse.
Yeah, it's interesting, James, because I've had a Suzuki 1.1 litre engine car for nearly 3 years now, and I've had no requirement for anything other than one oil change. That's it at Suzuki. It's had an oil change, and they did the air filter because they do it at the same time. But apart from that, it's there's an ICE engine. It's not required anything. So an electric car must require bugger all in the time you're going to own it. So little.
Yeah, well, the engines generally are good to 500,000 to 1 million miles anyway.
Are they really, the motors?
Yeah, wow. The motors. So compared to your average petrol car, if you get a good one, you may get like 200,000 miles and stuff like that out of it, but we get major problems. But most cars don't last that long anyway.
No, I mean, it's crazy when you think about what goes on inside a combustion engine. You're amazed it lasts that long. All the amount of motion and explosions and stuff that's going on inside them.
pretty impressive how long they do last for, considering how many parts and how many mechanical bits there are and that can break, how reliable they are. But electric takes it to the next level.
Yeah.
So my maintenance costs will go down significantly, especially if I don't burn through the tires. That's probably the most expensive part. Is a new set of tires.
What's been the deal with all EVs come with massive wheels these days?
Yeah.
So is there a reason behind it, an engineering reason rather than an aesthetic on that? Do you know?
I don't know, but I have read about tires that tire companies are working on new types of tires for EVs. Because a lot of energy gets wasted in the friction that the tires build and just the way current tires work. So changing the materials and stuff like that, they can keep the grip but make them more efficient on the way they roll and stuff like that. I think big tires are just what's in fashion. I think because you've got those BMW, the i8 and the i3, which they've disconnected the i3, discontinued the i3, and I think they've discontinued the i8 as well. But they had those. The cars looked a bit odd because they had these really thin, narrow tires. That's more efficient, but they just didn't look. It just looked weird when it's like you drive a car. The car looked like it had bicycle wheels on it, essentially, because of how narrow they are compared to normal tires.
Yeah.
And so I just don't think I just think cars look odd when they've got very thin tires, which are technically better for an EV.
Yeah. Okay.
So. The other reason is with like my Polestar 2, it's because it's while it's a saloon stroke hatchback sort of car, it is in fact built on a SUV platform, the Volvo XC40 platform.
Yeah,
it's built on. So that's a SUV, so it's naturally bigger with bigger tires anyway. So you've got to keep it with the bigger tires either way. Recap on new content. So I had an interesting question come in from one of our subscribers. They wanted some details of how we back up our Google Workspace, their Google Workspace data. And I realized, apart from the couple of things that we have inside our terms and conditions, we didn't really have an explanation of how the system worked and how it operates.
Yeah.
So I created a blog post based on that, which is now available on our website, which explains how our Google Workspace data backup works with the partners we use and how it operates, which I was able to send to them, and that answered all the questions they needed on their work towards a paperless office. Finally,
yeah, yes, I know.
Trying to get them paperless for a long time, but they've now decided to do it. So, you're about to add something?
No, it was just good to hear that somebody's actually, trying to actually move to a paperless office rather than use that expression paperless office. That's been bandied around since I've been working in IT, but this actually trying to do something about it now.
I was having a think about it this morning. Actually, it was a shower thought that came into my head. I was in the shower and it was like about A4 paper. I think apart from making paper airplanes, there is no valid reason to use A4 paper at work because everything else should and could be done digitally. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Well, it throws back to your original question. Have you got to post something to the HMRC? I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. But that's only because HMRC haven't caught up with digital making it digitally available on their website. So you've got to post this nonsense to them.
Yeah, I mean that depends on what you're doing. Half of their systems do, and then some stuff's super antiquated. So it's what you catch, isn't it? But
so in the work world, I can't see any reason for A4 paper existing and being used still. Unless you've got nonsense like this. This is for HMRC.
Yeah.
For everyone listening in, I'm just holding up some forms to Carl for HM Land Registry.
Yeah.
And their website. If you want to see what a website was like in the early 2000s, go to the HM Land Registry. It's a terrible. The WorldPay doesn't even work either. I wanted to pay to get some records on something.
Yeah.
It goes through. It looks like it takes your money, and then it throws you up with a 404 error. Doesn't load and stuff like that, and you never the purchase never goes through, and you never get what you request. And everything on there is fill in a form, print it out, send it to this PO box address, and all this absolute nonsense. And because I've got 2 rental properties, I can't fill both on one form. I have to print the form twice and then send it off because they won't accept it even though there's tons of room to add the extra addresses onto this one form. Now you've got to print out a completely separate form and send it off again.
Yeah.
When you're asking for the same thing on both.
Medical's the same. You try and join a doctor's and you have to print all these forms off. The school's the same. My daughter's school, everything's a Word document. Oh.
Yeah, it's not even done properly, the forms.
No. They've got the tools and they still don't make a form.
So we have some stuff in the company at a company called Vitality Life. It does insurances and things for us. And there was a problem with a direct debit, and I had to get that reinitiated. And they wanted me to print out a PDF form, fill it in with the information they've already got.
Yeah.
To start this thing off. I go, I'm not doing that. And I went, what if I haven't got a printer? How would I do that? Can't you send it me digitally? And then they got a reply back, okay, we're going to send it you digitally through DocuSign. Never came. They never did it.
Yeah.
Waited about 5 days, never happened. So I said, so in the end I went, just give me a bank that I can pay it into and a reference number, and I'll do it that way rather than filling in these nonsense forms, which they gave, and I've done the payment this morning. You might have seen it go through. And the thing is, they did that without me having to fill in the forms. So what was the point of getting me to fill in the forms in the first place?
Because that's what we've always done.
Exactly. It's that mindset.
Yeah. That's what we've always done, and we'll continue to keep doing that forever until someone tells me not to, which will never happen. Yeah,
because I'm just dealing with the employees who haven't got any decision making. They're not senior management or anything like that, so they're just doing what they've been told to do. And even if they know it's a crap idea and a stupid thing, there's nothing they can do about it. They can feed it back up the chain, but it never goes anywhere because they've got some crappy CTO who doesn't know what he's doing, or she doesn't know what they're doing.
Indeed. So
moving on to the news. I found this article really good. It's from the FT. I think it's the FT. Yeah, FT. It's big tech wants its workers back in the office, and there's a great takedown on people like Google and stuff like that, and like their hypocrisy there, in that over the pandemic, they've been hugely successful in making tools that allow people to work from everywhere with Google Workspace, Zoom, Microsoft 365 for Microsoft, and all that.
Yep.
But they want their employees to return back to the office, even though they've proven that they've been more profitable than ever. That clearly working from anywhere has not affected their business whatsoever. It's in fact made them better than they were before.
Yeah.
And reading into the article, I found it really interesting. So there's this paragraph about, it's called "Why are so many of the world's biggest tech bosses stuck in the idea that in-person work is better?"
Yeah.
So they got Reed Hastings of Netflix, who simply claims there's no positives for remote working at all.
He's not any of it.
Yeah, and then they got Sundar Pichai from Google there, and he says that seeing workers in offices fills him with optimism. And then Tim Cook also says that that there was something essentially missing from this past year: each other. And what that said to me was, actually, these guys are making decisions on their own personal feelings, not the rest of the company. Sundar Pichai is the best one, because he said it fills him with optimism. It's all about him. I just want my employees there because that fills me with optimism. It doesn't care if they want to be there or not, or if it fills them with optimism or not, if they can work better or not. He just wants them to be there because it makes him feel better. Similar to what Tim Cook has said as well.
All these people they're all over 40, if not much older. Tim Cook's nearly 60 or is 60. Yeah, they grew up and they cut their teeth in a generation of offices that they walked around and did stuff in. So yeah, their cognitive bias is towards this idea that it has to be better to be in an office because that's what they did. That's how they learned.
And and in the same article, they show a tech survey done by Indeed, which was a job site.
Yeah.
And in that, it said 95% of the people, of tech people, with the option to work from home, said they take the option to work from home. That's 95% of people. So we got people like Sundar saying it fills with optimism. 95% of his employees, potentially, it doesn't. And they just want to work from home and get on with it because they find it far more productive than being in a distracting, open plan office.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the tech companies, it's not only the distracted open plan office. It is also the fact that if I can live in Iowa and not in San Francisco Bay Area, my salary buys me a ranch instead of an apartment. And why wouldn't you want to move out into the suburbs or move further beyond? Why do I have to live near New York City or whatever it is? Because the boss, the CEO, likes it.
Yeah.
And there's no difference between that and somebody who drags people into the centre of Luton. It's the same idea.
And at the end of the article, it concludes that actually it's kind of an advantage for smaller companies that are nowhere near as wealthy as these tech companies, because there's going to be talent in these tech companies that just do not want to work in an office, and they can be forced into it. And you could get them to come and work for you as a smaller company and get some really talented people because you allow them to work from everywhere.
Oh yeah,
work for your business based on that, over wage or anything like that.
Yeah, this battle's going to rage for years. Yep. It's going to rage back and forwards. You could almost see it in a classical political sense, that you've got the ruling classes who want everyone back in the factories, and you've got the petty bourgeoisie who are up in the streets going, we don't want to do that. You've got revolutionary classic working class versus upper middle class and ruling class going on, and it's just another battle of that. Except this time, who's going to win over the long game? The person in the street always wins in the end, because you can't keep everyone down forever. It's impossible.
It was a great article, I thought. Did you read it? Did you see the whole thing? Yeah. Got through the paywall. There are ways through paywalls. And yeah, it's just a really good takedown on these big tech companies and the hypocrisy that they're showing.
Yeah, I did note there were a couple of companies in there that said they would never do anything else. In fact, they go back. If they did go back to offices, it would be like going back in time, and it would pull their company backwards. And of course, there are organizations like Twitter who have not changed their point of view on this. You can work anywhere. Yeah,
well, that's down to their leadership, Jack Dorsey, in that he's not doing it on his feelings, and his feelings are anyway that he's quite a strong libertarian, I believe.
Yeah,
he's fan of cryptocurrency and freedom and stuff like that. Hence the reason he's not got the feelings that he wants to force everyone to come back to an office to make himself happy. Let people do what they want to do, work the best way. Amazing how many bosses just don't get that.
Talking of the bosses, we're on to the next one. Tim Cook again.
Yeah, so this is an article about the tricky. I like it actually. It's a bit of I realised afterwards there's a bit of a pun in the title. The tricky task of replacing Tim Cook as Apple's core.
Yeah.
So this is all talking about. Tim's been getting on a bit, and he'll be reaching a decade at the helm of Apple very soon actually. Later this year I think it is.
Yeah.
He's done for shareholders and stuff like that. He's done a lot of good for Apple. So a decade ago, just as Steve Jobs was leaving this world, Apple's annual sales were 79 billion pounds. Let's do it in dollars. Actually, 108 billion dollars. This year, they're now forecasted to be 374 billion, and he's grown the company to a value of more than 2.4 trillion. So you can't say he hasn't done a good job. It's a bit like Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer was not a visionary. Tim Cook's not a visionary, but when they were both in charge, they massively increased the revenues that Microsoft and in this case Apple brought in. And the thing with Tim Cook is, while he's not a visionary, it is important to note that he did introduce the Apple Watch.
Yeah,
that's after Steve Jobs was about, and also the revenue generation of their cloud services, their subscription models, with like Apple iTunes subscription and all the other subscription services they do.
Yeah,
and brought in a lot of revenue that way. But one of the interesting things that I hadn't noticed was the current inner circle of Apple are all jobs era executives.
Yeah,
people have been in the company like 30 plus years, so they're all put in place by Jobs.
Yeah,
all the senior executives, and Tim hasn't really done much of a change to those at all.
No.
The ones he has brought in were big failures. So he brought a guy in from Dixons, which is the Dixons Group, which is a UK company that owns Currys and PC World and stuff like that, to manage their retail portfolio, the Apple stores. And he only lasted 6 months. And then the next person he brought in lasted 5 years before they got replaced. And you've also got the point now where you've got quite a few of these senior executives retiring because of their age. While Johnny Ive isn't especially old, he has now left Apple. So their main product designer, who designed all these products initially, has now left. But you've got other executives, like I said, that have been there for the last 30 years who are now just going into retirement. So it looks like there'll be some changes taking place at Apple, and finding a replacement seems to be going to be a tricky job, be a problem.
Yeah, it's interesting who they'll say. Some people are suggesting that Tim Cook's mostly been successful because he's a cracking financial person and he's jiggered around with taxation and value of the company for a shareholder. However, has he really innovated? Has that company really innovated in the last 10 years? Much.
he was one of the few tech executives who actually took time to deal with Trump, sit down and have chats with Trump and stuff like that for the benefit of Apple, while the others just basically stonewalled Trump and didn't do anything with it. The article goes on to say that the most obvious successor is a guy called Jeff Williams, who I've never heard of before, but he's Apple's chief operating officer, and he does appear quite a lot more on stage now during Apple events, doing the part that Steve Jobs used to do, the big reveals of the products and stuff like that. So he's one of the most keen people to be representing it, but it's still going to be difficult for them.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Especially Tim Cook, because he hasn't actually said he's going to retire yet. Which is one point to put out there. He has suggested that he could potentially do another 10 more years.
Yeah.
Which would take him to about 40 years at the company. He's been there a long time, Tim Cook. He was never questioned though when he took over, because he was Steve Jobs' preferred successor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he had that backing. So he's in a powerful position. Going on to the next story, this is an interesting one. This is by Krebs Online. It's Krebs on security, and it's about how ransomware is changing yet again. So a lot of ransomware gangs are pivoting to actually pay employees to install the software on their networks, because at the moment they do it through business email compromise, and that's basically hope and pray, spray and pray that someone gets caught. But it's far easier if I can go to you, Carl, and say, I tell you what, I'm going to ransomware your company. I'm going to, ask for 10 million. Maybe we'll get 4 million, and I'll give you 20% cut of that. Like, okay, yeah, that seems like a deal. So that's what they're doing. They're getting inside of people, inside companies, to deploy the software on the networks and ransomware, because it's a far better success rate.
Yeah, that's be interesting, because what do you do to defend against that?
Well, you do the normal thing, don't you? You turn off USB ports.
I mean, you got a lot of work to do there to defend against that, though.
Yeah, exactly, because there's lots of ways for that data malware to get inside the company.
Absolutely, almost impossible to lock things down to the state to actually stop that from happening.
Yeah.
Although the stats in that article suggest that business compromise email is still the #1 revenue stream for them.
Oh yeah, it will be. I suspect that's getting smaller though. That's the reason why they're looking at these other pivoting, because it's as people get more aware of it and as systems get better at detecting it, it's probably getting harder to get through.
Yeah.
So getting an inside man, it's like the biggest bank in the old days when they did bank heists. Got far more money having an inside man than going through the front door with a gun.
Yes, yeah, an inside job was always better. Yeah.
So it's interesting because a guy called Craig Hassell, who's the director of intelligence at Abnormal Security, described what happened when he accepted a fake persona and responded to a proposed screenshot. They offered to pay him 40% of $1 million ransom demanded if he agreed to launch the malware inside the employee's network. One of the interesting things is as well now that if you do get a business email compromise happen and it's attacked your computers, they change the wallpaper on your computers so you know how to pay and stuff like that. But they actually now put a thing on there, recruiting inside people inside the company to help them keep the software on the machines and infect the company more. Yeah,
I noticed that as well. Yeah, there's an offer there. Contact us via this encrypted Telegram channel if you want to opportunities working with us.
Yeah. And that's so even with the business email compromise, they're bundling in the recruitment at the same time.
There's going to be a lot of people tempted.
Oh, for sure, because of how many people are disgruntled employees. It's like on the news, whenever there's a problem with a company, they always find a disgruntled employee somewhere to talk about it.
Yeah. And these want big companies with thousands of employees, so you're going to find one.
It's not necessarily companies as well. Look at all the people in the NHS that are disgruntled.
Yeah, although
easily do that.
The ransomware people do state no government or healthcare police.
Oh, yeah. Well, that depends. As long as they're not in Russia. Anywhere else is fine, but if they're in Russia, we're not going to touch them because that's where we're based, and we don't want the Russian state coming after us.
Yeah, well, they certainly. Yeah, they don't do anything against the Russian state. No, that's right.
The Russians don't mess around. That's a double tap if you do, you're shot dead, no questions asked. But yes, a lot of them are doing that. It's an interesting step forward in ransomware, because the only solution is Google Workspace. It can't be ransomware.
No, that's right. You can't ransomware it.
So if you're like there's other examples as well. So if you're using installed Sage on your computer, anything that can be installed can be ransomware. Anything that's running in the browser essentially can't be. So if you look at if you have Sage installed on your computer, well, those Sage files can be encrypted. But if you're running Sage through the web version and nothing installed, then they can't encrypt your accounts because that's running on a separate computer and you're just viewing it via the browser. There's no way in for them to do that. They'd have to go and attack Sage directly, and then anyway, you've got no control over that. But if you've got something installed locally, that's a threat. So if you're using Microsoft Office installed locally and you've got files in file shares and things like that, documents and Excel documents, they can all be ransomware.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've seen it many times.
So the solution is moving stuff to a cloud, so you're accessing it via a browser.
Yeah, I mean the criminals of recent have just gone for the big companies now for the big bucks. But when it started, ransomware, it was all aimed at smaller individuals.
Yeah.
It was small companies got it all the time, but obviously now they're going for the big fish. But they'll come back down again as that becomes more difficult to do.
Yeah, definitely. So yours is the next news story you've got in here, and it's about a robot lawyer. I saw this article on the BBC, but go for it.
There's a BBC article stating that one of the reasons why people don't contest things like parking fines is that it's very difficult to know how to write a legal document. So a smart young chap had come up with an app called Do Not Pay, which helps people draft legal letters. And what it does is you write in the chatbot what you think the problem is that you've got, and it tells you how to write it in the sort of legal language that will defend you. And he's had a very good success rate with this AI application. People have significantly won cases where they parked legitimately and then been threatened with the £100 you overparked thing. We've all had one of those. You park in a McDonald's in a car park, and then you find out McDonald's don't own the car park. It's owned by another company, and they said you stayed too long, but actually you stayed at McDonald's to do some work with a coffee, and you get penalised. Well, this helps you get out of those. And the article is suggesting in the future that one way to solve some of the problems with the time it takes on legal cases is to use AI. And there was a barrister in a London firm, the 36 Group, and she said that they'd used AI in a complex murder trial, and it had analysed 10,000 documents, and it did it 4 weeks faster than it would have took humans, and it saved them 50 grand.
The problem with the Do Not Pay thing is because we got a car parking ticket a while back, and I wanted to use the Do Not Pay service, which was originally a UK service. But if you go to it now, it's fully American. You can't use it at all for UK stuff.
Oh, right. Okay.
He sold it to another company. I think he still runs it, but he pivoted it, and it's all, I guess it was a bigger market for him. But yeah, it's all American stuff on there. You can't do UK stuff on it anymore.
Oh, that's a shame.
Weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting article, and it said because the title of the article is "Would you let a robot lawyer defend you?" I wouldn't, but I'd allow a lawyer to use it to analyze amounts of data and stuff like that to get the information. Because in a court case is all it's a mental game, isn't it? It's playing with words and stuff like that, which a computer can't do. So like a simple word such as "to" could mean something differently based on the context that it's being used in and something like that. And that's where a lawyer, a human, can do that things. It's a bit like when we did that spreadsheet a few weeks ago where it was something really simple that a human could do. It would just take time. So we let the computer do it, but it struggled and it had to have a lot of information given to it to sort that spreadsheet for us. But this is likewise in a court case. I think a human is more adaptable. As long as the human can get the information, which is where the AI is good at bringing up and surfacing the information needed, a human can manipulate that to be the way you want it to be to tell the story inside a court case, which a computer can never do at the moment. Would you?
I don't think I'd want a robot lawyer, but I agree. Depending on what the case was, I can see how using that would help. Yeah,
definitely for surfacing it, and I guess you could always pay the guy who does the AI not to surface documents you don't want surfaced. That would be called witness manipulation, but it'd be something else than that, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. Depends where you got full disclosure. If you got full disclosure, you couldn't use the evidence anyway.
And then you've got one about Audible.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone uses Audible on their subscription service and noticed, but they've added a Premium Plus membership recently in July, and this gives you access to 7,500 books that were paid for before.
Is it like £7.99 or something like that?
Yeah, $7.99 would buy you 1 credit a month, so 1 book, which is what I have. And then I noticed the other day when I was looking for something that there's a load of kids' books on there to listen to, and loads of other books that are now free, and loads of podcasts and content.
I'm on a legacy Audible one, so I've been on it for years. I get tons of I get like a whole bundle of tokens come in for a fixed price, and they last for the whole year and stuff like that before it renews again.
Yeah.
But I've actually gone off audiobooks. I've been using Google Play Books and actually getting proper books to read on my screen now.
Oh, okay.
Audiobooks are good, but I always find myself getting distracted, and I'll be listening to it, and then I was like, oh, I have to replay that section because I wasn't listening properly. I something else pops into your mind and you think about it. I don't get that when I'm reading on the phone. But also the other thing that I don't like about audiobooks is when there's a section that's really nice that you want to hear, you want to mark or something like that, you can't really do it in audio. But they have like a button to press, and it takes a little snippet and stuff like that. But you've got to listen back to that to hear it. But with a Google Play book, you can highlight the text. So highlight it yellow, green, or whatever, and you can just go back to that page whenever. So if there's like a quote that you want to refer to in the future or something like that, you can get to it really quickly. But Google Play Books also, for each book you do that you annotate, it creates a Google document inside your Google Drive with the annotation there as well from the book.
Right, okay.
So yeah, what I've been reading is Androids. It's a new book about the history of Android, the operating system.
Yeah.
From when it started to its early use up to the point where it launched for the first time, about all the team behind it. But yeah, I've been using that in Google Play Books. So gone off audiobooks at the moment.
Okay. I still like it when I'm doing stuff like mowing the lawn or cleaning and things like that.
Yeah, it's just for reference, really. There's loads of stuff that I've listened to in audiobooks that I just can't get back very easily to find them, to reference parts in it, which you can do when you put it on a screen.
Yep.
And then you got, there's one last one about Google discontinuing the Pixel 5.
Yes. Yeah, I was just reading, I know the Pixel 6 is coming soon, and the Pixel 4a 5G and the 5 are being discontinued by Google. You pretty much can't buy one now. They're out of stock everywhere. And it won't be long now before the 6 is coming. It'll be interesting to see what that's like. But, it's the phone that we've been recommending, the 4a, and of course now you can't get it.
You can get the 4a. It's 4a 5G you can't get.
Right, okay. So I think the 4a is available in some blue color.
The 4a 5G and the 5a have been discontinued because they're essentially the same phone. There's literally there's tiny differences in them. Yeah. You wouldn't even be able, I can't even name the differences. That's how small they are. And they look identical. Or the Pixel 4 or the Pixel 5 has looked identical. But what's happening is they disconnected the 4a and the 5a so that they have a better lineup of phones when the Pixel 6 comes out. So the Pixel 6 is going to be the premium flagship, top of the range, equivalent of a Samsung and iPhone. Then you're going to have the Pixel 5 just below that. And then you're going to have the Pixel 4a that we've got just below that. So the 4a is continuing, the Pixel 5 is continuing, and the Pixel 6. So they've got a nice lineup of a top of the range phone and 2 good mid-range phones.
Yeah.
And the Pixel 5a is slightly bigger. Pixel 5 is slightly bigger than the Pixel 4a, so you've got a size difference there as well on your mid-range phones. And it just makes more sense than having all these different versions in between of the 5G versions, because the Pixel 5 itself is 5G anyway.
Yeah.
And the Pixel 6 will be 5G. It's only the Pixel 4a that isn't 5G, which turns out isn't really much of a problem because 5G has been a bit blown up, overhyped, because I'm not missing anything by not having a 5G phone.
No, I can't say I am either.
Because especially in the last year, how everything's changed and people now working from home and being at home more often, they've got your phone's connected to your Wi-Fi anyway. It's not like you're out and about as you used to be.
Yeah.
So you don't need that speed. And then you've got cars. Your car now comes with at least a 4G, but normally a 5G internet connection inside it anyway. And that's why your car is Wi-Fi enabled. So even when you're out and about in your car, your phone's connected to your car's Wi-Fi anyway. So, and that can use that connection if it's quicker than what you're getting from your phone because your car's got a 5G connection, your phone's only got a 4G connection. Just go on your car's Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
More speed out of it. But yeah, we're looking to get in the Pixel 6 when it comes out.
Well,
I am anyway.
I know you said you are.
Yeah.
I'm all right with my 4A, to be honest.
4A is a nice phone.
Yeah.
It's a very good phone. And it's only $349 at the moment, but it will go down in price as well once the Pixel 6 comes out. So it's going to be a really, really good phone to have, good quality phone, work phone. If you're looking for phones to deploy to your staff, 4A is the one to go for.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's does the whole work profile thing. It's a really solid phone, and the camera is awesome. It's a great phone for the money.
Yeah, and it's slightly smaller as well than your average smartphone. So I guess that's a good thing in that employees will probably not use it for their personal use because they've got their own iPhone or whatever for that, which is bigger.
Yeah.
To play their games on, and they're just using that for pure work. But yeah, the Pixel 6 is looking very nice when it comes out. I like the new design of it. In that they've essentially got rid of the camera bump that's plagued phones for the last few generations.
Yeah.
In that it has a bar running across the whole thing. So I guess it's kind of, when you put it on the desk, it's probably pointing a bit towards you because of the way it lifts up, but it's not going to wobble left and right because it hasn't got that bump. Yours will wobble unless you've got yours in a case. I've got mine in a case.
The case on it, so yeah.
Yeah, if you take the case out, then you've got to wobble because it can't lie flat on the ground.
Yeah, very true.
I used to never carry my phones in cases until my daughter was born, and then I started dropping my phones more often. So that's when I started using cases.
Yeah, I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson has a point about it, but nevertheless, I'm glad I've got mine in a case because sometimes you're just manhandling a child as well.
What's his point about it, Neil deGrasse Tyson?
He says he never has a case because he's constantly fondling the phone like that, and so therefore he learns never to drop it like a soldier who can spin his rifle, and so he never has a case because he's constantly learning how to do it.
I don't think he's got any kids though, has he?
Not of a young age anymore, no.
Yeah. So he's not experienced carrying a phone and carrying a kid at the same time, and how easy it is just to accidentally not put it on the table correctly, or just to drop it because you just have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we've got our recommendations.
Bit lean this time.
I've got a recommendation. Can't remember it. You say while I find it. Apart from that Androids book, I just need to get the full title of it. You tell everyone about your recommendation.
Well, my recommendation is a show that's been out for a while, but I hadn't watched it, called The Boys on Amazon Prime, which is a superhero show about what if superheroes existed in the world, but they were really horrible, devious characters behind the scenes, and they were really actually narcissistic and evil. And that's what this show addresses, with a bunch of rebel guys who are fighting against these superheroes, the Seven, who are really horrible people. And what I like about it the most is it's proper adult content at 18. It is full of sex, bad language, fantastic violence, like heads exploding and stuff like that, arms being ripped off and people being chopped in half with lasers and stuff. It's proper good quality adult entertainment, and it's really good. Really good.
A friend of mine told me I should watch The Boys, but I looked at the cover of it. It's on Amazon Prime, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. The actual thumbnail just put me off it, so I never watched it.
Well, if you watch it, you only need to watch 5 minutes of the first episode to just you'll get it. It hits you straight away with something that says, "This is what I'm about." So you'll soon decide whether you like it or not in 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. I might spend 5 minutes on that then.
Yeah, give it the first 5 minutes of the first episode, and you'll soon see what it's about. It doesn't pull any punches.
So going back to Google Play books, the book I'm reading is Androids by Chet Haase, who was a member of the Android team when they first set up, and it's a book looking back at the team that built Android operating system right from the start, from when Andy Rubin moved from Danger to create the Android company, and then it got acquired by Google, and how the team was built. And it's kind of a retrospective. He's just getting everyone's thoughts and information about it, because now the team is spread apart and stuff like that. So people are starting to forget what happened, and he wants to get all the anecdotes and everything that took part during the initial building of Android up to version 1 when it was released. And it's a really good book, very good book. You learn quite a bit about how Android works, its underlying operating system, the reason why they decided to pick Java as the language, and all that kind of stuff that it's written on. all the testing they did, how they set up these test benches and to do mass testing, and how like rough it was at the start, and how they were just hacking away at doing things. It's a very good book, especially if you follow Google and you like Android devices and stuff like that, and you want to learn about Android. It's only just come out, so it's a new book. It's available on Google Play Books and other places as well. So just do a search for Androids by Chet Haase, and that's Haase for his surname. But yeah, enjoyable book. So I'm reading that at night times at the moment. I'm watching any Netflix or anything like that. But again, I love Google Play Books just because I can annotate it, and then it's in my Google Drive forever, so I can just do a search for what I'm looking for and get that quote back that I can remember in my head, but I can't remember exactly where it was.
Yeah, that's pretty smart.
So Google Play Books has a nice hidden feature there. But that's our recommendations, and we have good news for some people. We have got some guests coming on in a couple of shows, a couple of shows around about November time, I think. We got a client, Max Servicing, and the two directors coming on to the podcast to have a chat about how their IT inside the world of tarmac.
Yeah, works. The world of resurfacing roads.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and actually quite a proficient Google Workspace user for a long time.
Yeah,
it'll be good that we haven't had a guest in a long time.
No, so just working on some guests to get back on the show. But everyone, thanks for listening. We're back in a fortnight's time.
Yeah, see you in a fortnight's time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.